Well, hello, beloved You community and family. As always, it's an honor. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I am just going to say you want to really give yourself a little time to be able to be present for this conversation. I am so excited to share my guest with you. Just absolute beautiful spirit, person, woman, teacher, mentor to so many. So thrilled that you're here. And as always, thank you for tuning in and doing whatever it is to unlock and unleash and be your Youest you. Let me tell you about our guest today, Acharya Shunya. Acharya Shunya is a truth teller who facilitates authenticity, self-remembrance, and divine feminine pathways to awakening within. Yes, we need this. The first female head of her 2,000-year-old Indian spiritual lineage, Shunya reinterprets and recontextualizes ancient teachings for modern times, empowering people everywhere to lead fearless, fulfilled, and enlightened lives. She is president of the Awakened Self Foundation and founder of Vedika Global Inc. in California, and is the author of the best-selling books, Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom and Sovereign Self, and the new book, Roar Like a Goddess, which we're going to be talking about. She lives in Northern California, and it's just an honor to have you here, Shunya. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. I look forward to our conversation.
Well, I'd love to talk about this, you being the first, I believe it was the first female head of your 2,000-year-old spiritual lineage, to talk a little bit for a minute. How, maybe just for those who don't know you well, how did that come to be? What does that look like? What does that mean? And then so many other questions, but let's just start there because that's pretty incredible.
It is. And it's so timely too. And the Vedic tradition represents the philosophical teachings, the universal wisdom that is connected to the religion more well known, which is Hinduism. And Veda is not itself a religion. It is, however, a body of wisdom, and it informs and is the substratum and foundation of Vedic disciplines of spirituality and evolution of consciousness, which includes yoga. That's right, meditation, and the entire yoga stream comes from the Vedas. Ayurveda, which is a popular system of alternative medicine today that is coming from the Vedas, and also Advaita Vedanta, or non-dual philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. Well, that's right there. That's a Vedic teaching. And historically, if you go into the Vedas, this is the first wisdom tradition that has not only contribution from male seers, that happens in most traditions, but interestingly, we have 27 female authors or poetess or seers who have contributed to the Vedas. So to begin with, Veda was a very progressive tradition which celebrated the feminine and the divine feminine as God. But then India, as it happened all over the world, became gradually more and more identified with the story of the male character on this planet, androcentrism, patriarchy, all of that took roots. And gradually women were separated from the Veda to the point where it is a belief that Vedas should not be read by women, it's only for men. But I was born in one such family that had been teaching the true Vedic, progressive, universal, spiritual, non-dual essence for thousands of years. All my ancestors are renowned folks in India. And when I came along, by the time I came along, my great-grandfather and great-grandfather had already taken the decision to be done with any dogma potentially and open their wisdom school to women. So by the time I came around, the soil bed was ready for my seed to be planted. And then for 14 long years of in-depth instruction in those ancient Vedic scriptures, teachings, wisdom, meditation, practices, went into me in preparation, because my guru, my grandfather, had decided when I was only 9 that I'm going to head this lineage. He must know something that I didn't know back then. And clearly, I am heading it. And he even told me that, Shunya, you will not, to do the work you have to do, you will travel abroad and create international institutions. And I didn't even know what traveling abroad meant at that time. But here I am, established in Bay Area, California, with students worldwide, upholding that great tradition as its first female head.
This is so I want to say, like, I always teach and talk about our body has wisdom. And the whole time you're speaking, I literally have chills on my legs, my arms. It's like, can feel the power of what you're saying, and the beauty that your grandfather, that your lineage prepared you, in essence, knew that, at 9, and started to prepare you, to me, even depicts that openness, and really shifting to having a powerful female, to be the head. I mean, that is, maybe some would say, revolutionary. It's so incredible to me that you were raised kind of having that sense. Did you feel, I'm just curious, because I'm thinking of people that have this, we have a lot of listeners that have big dreams, that want to, especially women, a lot of women here, a lot of identified women that want to do big things in the world, make an impact, that want to, change the way the system is, that want to try to disintegrate patriarchal trends. And I'm curious, did you ever feel different because you were female, or ever doubt that this would happen? Or sounds like your grandfather paved the way, but I'm just curious, given that you didn't have anyone doing this.
Well, I really had a great start to my life as a female on a planet that's essentially hostile to the feminine gender and feminine identified beings. I kind of lived in a bubble as long as I was in my family of origin, which was made up of liberated, awakened souls. But we're a householder tradition. We're not a monastic tradition. In India, you can be a householder or a monk, and it's your choice. And we're a householder tradition. So we take on partners, lovers, husbands, wives, as is our will. So when I was married for the first time, it was an arranged marriage. And then karma unfolded for me, because I walked into this iconoclastic patriarchic setup. And it was not, if it had been overtly abusive, it would have been easier to leave, but it was coldly dismissive.
Mm.
It politely expected me to toe the line and to play the part. And for a while there, I got befuddled, because now I was upset, because I hadn't had the training to meet with these kind of shadows in my life. I had been looking at my own shadows. And typically what spiritual people do is we then try to over accommodate and be over peaceful and over clear. And we start doing all the work while the outside world is doing no work except putting blockages. But, thanks to the wisdom, I could discern that this is not something I have to just close my eyes and meditate about. This is something I have to roar about. And thankfully, along with the Vedic instruction, we also have a beautiful goddess temple in my home, which is 300 years old. We have goddess stories that I grew up with, where the goddess faces also patriarchic slur, where she is objectified sexually or minimized because of who she is. Just a slip of a gal. She could really be the divine reality, but then she is. And she roars with her own inner self-recognition. So I had to then pull in those aspects too, which empowered me, and not just elevated me, but also empowered me in a day-to-day sense. And then I just left. I was like, I'm not playing this game.
Mm.
At least my partner made a pretense to meet me halfway, but in India, And I think, as in the world, we kind of get married to the whole family, and it was just too much. And then for a while there, I didn't know why my grandfather had chosen me. I fell into this darkness, this place of like, could I have done it differently? Could I have stayed because my son was only 1 year old? Could I have done, a woman's guilt? But then I saw through that too. I saw through that guilt. I saw that it's like a virus in the air and you inhale it. Instead of shaming myself, I need to celebrate myself. And once that insight occurred, all my goddess-like self-respect was restored. And I understood through the Vedic training of my teacher that that pain had not happened to me, it had occurred for me, so that one day I could write books and teach the world. And I really work closely with the feminine gender and feminine identified people, and actually people of any gender. I have those who are queer bodies, fluid gendered bodies, and disabled bodies. All these bodies are very dear to me because they're often made invisible, like I had been made.
Mm.
And my heart opened up for everyone who has felt disempowered, and then everything came back to me. I have been married now happily for 20 plus years again, and my son understands why I left his father, and all is well.
You really lived through. It sounds like you really had to come face to face with this, and that experience has given you the depth and the understanding. As a female, I'll just say this: I'm not of the. I wasn't born in the, from an Indian family, but I still relate. I had a very similar situation where it felt not aligned, and not any crazy bad reason. And I really relate to what you're saying. And I know others listening are too. And I love that you brought up this roaring like a goddess and having this, how amazing you had this goddess temple in your home. I mean, I think we all need a goddess temple. And one of my questions, so for those who, this beautiful book, Roar Like a Goddess. I love this. Every Woman's Guide to Becoming Unapologetically Powerful, Prosperous, and Peaceful. I want to talk about some of that with you. There's in chapter 4, I love this, the wording, the goddess path to unconditional self-respect. Can we unpack that a little bit, Shunya, what that means? How can those listening, how can we develop this unconditional self-respect? I think this is so key. I know for me personally, I spent many years not doing that. I've changed a lot since then, but I know many struggle with that. Would love to to unpack that with you.
Or we may be respecting ourselves, but not unconditional.
Right.
And I think that is the difference between an ordinary self-respecting mode of mind or attitude and a unconditional self-respect. And a difference between the Shunya of today and the Shunya who was in a corner yesterday. Well, that's more than 2.5 decades ago, but she was there. And the difference is that I learned to make self-respect unconditional, because we have 3 relationships with the divine. If we are separate from the divine, then we serve the divine as a devotee. If we share a relationship with the divine, as in mother and child or father and child, whatever, divine, feminine, divine, then we share even a closer relationship as child and parent. And if we go into the non-dual understanding of the Vedas and Hinduism, then we are that God, goddess ourselves. We may be asleep to our true potential, but that life force, that awareness, that consciousness is none else but that. And if I have all these relationships, and if I respect divinity, then I have to extend that respect to me. And there is a part of me that is divine and a part of me that is learning to be divine. And I have to, first of all, extend to this learning part safety. And secondly, I have to extend to it respect. Unconditional safety, unconditional respect. I'm going to fall, I'm going to make mistakes, I'm going to be even lost for a while. There was my decision. But while others can give up on this part, my inner self, my higher self, my goddess self will not give up this part, this falling, failing, broken, crazy, silly, goofy part. No. Even selfish part, no. Because all these things, even selfishness, even stupidity, even murderous traits, they all come into this jagat or this universe because of a divine presence. So everything is beautiful or sanctified. Even our darkest moments have some light in them. I'm not validating wrongdoing. I'm just saying that even in a criminal, we can not approve of the crime, but we don't have to give up the person who has committed the crime because they have some relationship with the divine truth. So when we start understanding goddess, when we start understanding the divine all-pervading presence, when we take her away from one religion, one culture, one painting, one deity to an all-pervading cosmic consciousness that is nurturing and bringing us our darkness so we can find our light, then where is the reason to discard ourselves, lose respect for ourselves? And it's only when we lose respect for ourselves that we allow the others to disrespect us and get away with it. Now that I have understood that respecting me is same as respecting Durga or Lakshmi or Saraswati, the goddesses from my culture, then I have found that somehow people around me are more watchful. You know why? Because you don't have to proclaim it to the world. You just have to know it. Mm. And when you know something silently, everybody knows. Don't mess with her because she embodies unconditional self-respect. And then I have in my book, Roar Like a Goddess, shared some mythological tales of the goddess where she also met with some borderline disrespect. She could have let it go if she was a human, but because she was a goddess, she didn't. And because of her disagreement to agree to what was coming her way, her mindful disagreement, it changed the paradigm for all of us. And so I think about that every morning when I get up. An important word that comes up to me is self-respect. It's more important than my breakfast now. And because I've faced it in a marriage where I was not the good wife and the good mother and the good daughter-in-law, in a society where I'm not a good enough teacher just because of my gender, and where my sisters are dealing with unequal pay, unequal opportunities, unequal voice on this planet. It's something through my book that I have really woke people to. And I feel like just reading it is all they need to do, like, because it's a natural state. It will wake up from my storytelling and unpacking of these teachings. This is my belief.
It's beautiful. There's a lot in that you just said. And actually, I think for those that are tuning in that may not know as much about the three goddesses, about, I'm not going to say it as beautifully as you, but Durga, Saraswati, Lakshmi, if you would, just to give a little bit maybe of context around these three and the power of these goddesses and how that's part of your of what you're sharing and teaching and Roar Like a Goddess, how you bring them in.
Yeah, there's really only one goddess or one force known as Shakti. And it's an interestingly feminine force. It does not push, it invites. It does not tear down, it builds. So it's a feminine force, and her name is Shakti. Shakti means power. And this goddess has many attributes, and her chief attributes are Durga, Lakshmi, and Saraswati. And you said it beautifully. And these goddesses are the three sections in my book, part one, part two, part three, within the same book. And Durga represents power unto itself. She is power. And when we awaken her within us, instead of feeling disempowered, helpless, dependent, broken, we start getting in touch with our own sleeping power. Durga is also said to be the goddess of righteous rage. For too long, women and feminine identified beings and people of mixed genders and people of certain color over other colors, they have been asked to suppress their rage or take it away or don't show it to us, and it's dangerous. And historically, we have learned to gulp it down or live with it or convert it into positive emotions like harmony and balance and peace and cuteness and kindness. And while I endorse all of those, I also endorse rage, because Durga represents not unconscious, crazy, disease-making rage, but conscious rage, the rage that informs us, the rage that protects us and our loved ones, the rage for which we stand up for greater causes. And so I talk about, for example, in my book, how to identify if you're suffering from unconscious rage and take care of that, then what is conscious rage, and then what is even superconscious rage, which is not directed towards a specific person or situation, but towards our ignorance collectively. And I really feel that I was channeling my superconscious rage, Julie, when I wrote Roar Like a Goddess. So that's what Durga is about. And then there are her mantras, or those sounds which you can say that awaken her from within you. There are, so many other anecdotes and teachings which have to do with our own sexual sovereignty, boundaries, being able to not live from stereotypical scripts and be a bit true to ourselves, even if it's a bit unconventional for others. And I feel like that Durga section gives permissions and opens doors within to access that. Lakshmi is then the goddess who dwells in our heart, and she's the goddess of pleasure, prosperity, laughter, beauty, nature. And she's all about playfulness, restfulness, but it's anchored in dharma. And dharma, in short, is a Sanskrit word which means conscious behavior. When we are at play or when we are lovemaking, all is welcome as long as we're conscious. We're not walking into any scripted, conditioned, unethical agreements that we made in some stupor of, life and alcohol doing something to us. This is about, Lakshmi is about the blossoming of the being. Now that we've shed the fear with the help of Durga, we come into this life and we often see it as such a burden. But then with Lakshmi's help, her anecdotes, her story, where she again reiterates self-respect and self-worth. And then she reaffirms that life is not just to work hard and be pious. It's also about play and playfulness and sexual energy and sensual joy. And she says her four hands represent material abundance, sexual and other pleasure, conscious behavior, and finally the spiritual quest. So she really gives us a purpose to life, a fullness to life, and an inner opening to lead a more balanced life, because sometimes we're only playing to the point of hurting ourselves, and sometimes we are overly pious to the point where we're no longer whole. And Lakshmi represents all that unfolding. And I really hope that the everyday woman who is kind of divided up between being introverted and extroverted, playful and austere, a spendthrift and someone who doesn't spend any money at all on herself, to feeling guilty, to being guiltless. Like, she'll bring us into balance. And then finally, Saraswati is the goddess of our higher mind, our higher consciousness. She represents wisdom, intuition, and she represents the Veda itself, the knowingness from the Veda. And she asks us to discern what is a minor matter in our life, which I call MM, and what is a soul matter, SM. Like, what are things that we can ignore, accommodate, or just not pay any attention to, period. For example, in my life, once what happened in my marriage, when my first marriage was important, it was a soul matter. I had to face it, grow from it. But then I didn't have to go on holding on to that identity, to that pain, to those projections of other delusional people. I could just let it go. Been there, done that, it happened, it's not real. What is really real is this person that's emerging from that collapsed person. Who is this person? Never estimate your present and future self just for the sake of your past. And so Saraswati teaches us how to convert our trauma into fuel for our growth. She teaches us what is a minor matter, what is a soul matter. So I use that mantra in my life 10 times a day. Minor matter, move on. Minor matter, move on. And I go on like showing up on this podcast, Soul Matter, because this is a platform to talk about really relevant, soulful subjects that souls must talk about and listen to. This is not a collection of bodies or titles or roles. We're not wives and mothers and daughters and CEOs here. We're just souls, and we need this knowledge. So this takes priority over anything. So I teach these things in Roar Like a Goddess because first I want women to roar with courage and self-affirmation as they are, single or married or widowed or spinster, gay or lesbian, doesn't matter. Yeah. Then I want them to roar with fullness and balance and prosperity and abundance because, hey, if you're going to be on this planet, then you better ask for your promotion or for your recognition as a homemaker, and you better enjoy that shopping trip that you did make and not feel full of guilt with it. And if you're over shopping, then why don't you meditate for a bit? So she teaches balance. And finally, I talk about Saraswati because we're all wounded. Like, you shared your wound, I shared mine, and every listener of ours has some wound, some trauma. And even if we didn't, our DNA is shrieking from the female infanticide, from the burning of millions of women as witches, for the burning of women for dowry, for raping them in the name of giving them professional favors. So we need Saraswati to find our unbroken essence amidst all this abject brokenness.
Wow, Shunya, that is like, I am going to just take a pause. I just want everyone to take that in your heart, in your being. Ooh, I haven't had this happen. I have tears. It's hard for me I'm holding them back because I don't want to, I won't be able to talk if I start crying. But what you said, it really touched me at the soul level. And, the whole concept of this idea of the Youest to you, what we're doing here, is really at the soul level. The Youest, the most, your highest essence, your soul is who you really are. And what you were saying, it really, really touched me at a very deep level. And I know it is for anyone listening. And I just, this roaring, even that word has such energy and vitality to it, that just choosing that word, and I know you spoke about it earlier, and finding, this, your voice, the courage, the balance, the flow, the healing. I mean, this really, I feel like it's one of the reasons I felt like we had to have this conversation right now, is I feel like we're so in need of this. It's the time couldn't be more ripe right now. Um, as a female and self-identified as a female myself, and I really appreciate what you're teaching, especially as it relates to, I was raised, I love my mom, I love my dad, and was raised like, be a nice girl, Julie. Make sure you include everyone. Say, like, be nice, be kind. I think being kind is important, but there are times, like you said, conscious, that righteous rage. I call it sacred anger, like that
Mhm.
anger that is just, that's fertilizing something to be growing up through you to change what's around you. This is just, it's such a beautiful teaching and roadmap and path for all of us to, even embrace. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about prosperity, abundance. That's something, I know in the past struggled with. Is it okay to be prosperous and abundant? Like, when some people in my family weren't, when some people in the world aren't, when people are. And so there's so many areas we could talk about. And I think that that's one of them that I see with others as well, clients and myself and women, is owning our voice. Not always gonna have to be nice, but also this whole level, this whole area of prosperity. Would just love to kind of dig into that for a moment.
Even I had those struggles in the beginning. And I think it's because of this guilt that we inhale.
Mm.
And it's more women than men who have this fundamental question, because we are givers and sharers, and it perplexes us and dismays us that everybody doesn't have cake, so how can we eat it? It's just part of our mothering nature, is what I really, it comes down to our inherent nurturing nature. At the same time, now I look at nature herself and I see that some trees are adorned with flowers and fruits and other trees are shedding.
Mm.
There are some bushes that are filled with green juicy leaves and the others are yellow and brown. And I saw that there is a larger spiritual mathematics called karma, which gives us different endowments. But what is common amongst us all is not what we are born into, but what we deserve. So it's not like whether you live in a castle or whether you live in a hut. The question is whether wherever you are living, as you were born in the station of your life or whatever opportunities came or did not come, are you abundant in that moment? And if you are not, then it is your responsibility as an intelligent, goddess blessed, created human being to endeavor for that, to ask for that, to charge for that, to save for that, to even invest for that. Because artha, artha literally is the Sanskrit word which means wealth, stability, security, is something we all need to endeavor. Even squirrels work for their wealth throughout summer, collecting for winter. So, as humans, we can't just sit there and say, the goddess has my back, or God has my back, or I'm too spiritual to ask. This is self delusion. This is not doing the work. And this could also be conditioning, where there are actually religions, and I don't want to name them, where they endorse poverty, for the sake of austerity. So they have a purpose. They're not trying to play games, except that those religions also got misunderstood and people started embracing poverty as a badge. But then we have the goddess Lakshmi. She wears the most radiant silks of green and white and saffron and gold, and she's bedecked with every jewel possible, from diamonds to pearl to rubies. And from her hands flow in our human imagination all kinds of currencies. What is she then representing? She's saying, as long as this wealth has been ethically sourced, dharmically sourced, dharmically saved, dharmically also shared with an intention at least to share, you can have a party with this wealth. You can enjoy, we want you to enjoy this. We make this world more difficult than it is with our own belief system. As a spiritual teacher who comes from a tradition where we had been giving away knowledge for free, in India, teachers from my lineage, they give away everything for free.
Yeah.
But then it was never one way giving. It's always a two-way street, because what happened was, while my ancestors sat and taught without a fee, our household was really run by grateful people and their donations and their gifts without asking, right down to fresh vegetables, to fruits, to granaries, to cows and goats, and gifts of clothes and whatever my grandfather and my father and everybody needed, and down to even when I got married, there were gifts to make the marriage possible for the girl child of the family, because my ancestors had not earned the money, earned it, but they had ethically deserved it, and it came their way, and they never said no. When I came to America, I realized that you can start a nonprofit and you can do for things for free, but then others just take it, say thank you, and they leave. If you don't ask, you don't get back, because it's not the culture. It's not like people are of the wrong mindset, but it's just not, culturally institutionalized, because they're like, there was no fee. So it was free as in free. So then it was upon me to channel the Lakshmi archetype. I talked to my team, and now we have a suggested fee or a clear fee for whatever is our offering, ethically earned, ethically asked, ethically saved. And then my organization does donations and philanthropy from whatever we earn in a year, every year without fail. So it's like money is circulated back by us. And I think this is what Goddess was teaching us. Because, and if you look at the give and take relationship, even the sun, when it shines, that sun shines and everything grows because of it. But then the sun also takes back through evaporation, back from them. The clouds pour water into the ocean, and then the ocean evaporates to become the cloud. There is a give and take. And so my teachings on Lakshmi in my book especially are around the misperceptions that we women have, either of shunning money or settling for less, because we don't equate, we feel like we're above it or beyond it or not attached to money. And worse, sometimes we sleep or give sex for money, or for some other favor, for some other material favor. So we ourselves, our essence is not for sale for money, but at the same time, money is an important resource. It's a Shakti, it's a power, it's an energy that Lakshmi represents. And that is why I love coming from a culture where if we dropped a coin unconsciously, my mother and father would insist that I pick up that coin and lift it to my head, because it represents Lakshmi. It represents power. It's not just a coin. It represents a power with which I can make some change for the good. So you start like valuing things in your life, valuing material things. So our culture, the Vedic culture, does not shun materialism and wealth. In fact, it's said that among the 4 important goals of life, one of them is to be prosperous, and one of them is to be sexually happy. It's amazing. Instead of shaming us, it tells us, do it, but do it in an ethical way. I hope this helps what I have shared with you.
Oh, so much so. I so much so. And, I hope everyone listening, you're really like soaking this in like a sponge because this resonates for me. Why would we be put here not to enjoy, sexually, prosperity, you know, connections, family? I mean, I just, this really, really resonates, and love that story of the coin. Like just remembering the essence, the power, that
Mhm.
Shakti essence. I have my little Lakshmi statue in front of me because it's one of my, it's a gift for me to remember this power. I had showed it to you earlier, and I love her. I look at her every day, and I'm like, she is so sitting in abundance and is balanced and harmonious. And it's just, I love having that reminder of being feminine, being female, and having this goddess essence that we all deserve. Like you said, that's not a question. We all deserve that. Yeah. Before we wrap, I could speak with you for hours, Shunya. If you ever want to come back, we'll do round 2 and 3. I mean, you're just beautiful inside out, and your wisdom is like just on the cosmic level. It's beautiful. I want to just, I call them heart flares, where there might be something I didn't ask you or that we didn't mention yet, either about your book or your teachings or you, that I just want to give you some space, grace, and time to share whatever is perhaps still on your heart.
Well, I really like, first of all, the term heart flare. I think it's really a nice term. I really feel that I want to call people worldwide, and specifically, I'm talking to all females and feminine gender identified beings, but anyone who has become disempowered systemically, to begin roaring, because you have an inherent connection with some divine force, whether you call that force or intelligence in Hindu terms or Christian terms or Jew terms or agnostic terms, or as an atheist, you call it the universal intelligence. It doesn't matter. You are one with this paradigm, and if my teachings call you, then you can dive into these goddesses more as eternal archetypes of your own power, your own true potential to be prosperous and peaceful and powerful. You're not, do not, not venture there because it's old or mythological or Hindu or traditional, because it's none of that. And it's all of that in the sense that it borrows from that tradition, but then it brings it into your contemporary life and your contemporary situation. And as Julie said, the word roar is really vital. It has its own energy. And I want there to be a roaring movement. So join me for that, because every empowered but dharmic, so empowered but sensitive person, right? It's the coming together of two things, because often power makes us arrogant and obnoxious, but power plus dharma makes us divine. When that comes together, then can you imagine what a planet will become? Can you for a moment think what our planet would be if all genders, and it brings me tears, enjoyed equal respect? People of every sexual preference could walk freely without bigotry, without fear of even murder or rape or being made invisible, which is such an affliction, such a wound. Can you imagine if your children could walk free and make choices about their beliefs, about their gender, about its sexuality? Can you imagine if women, men, and people of mixed genders could be equal stakeholders on our planet? And that's a dream that I had once seen, and I've made a dent towards it by roaring myself and asking others to roar. So I invite you to a deeper self-respect, a deeper self-accept, acceptance and a deeper self-love, and then extending it to others, which is Dharma. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to share my heart flare.
Thank you, Shunya. So beautiful. I want to ask anyone like, is there a dry eye out there? 'Cause that is so, it is something I dream of as well. And I know anyone tuning in, I just know the way that it works, attracting other souls that are on this journey who want to learn to roar. First of all, you really must get Shunya's book, Roar Like a Goddess. If you're watching, I'm showing it. It's beautiful. And just to find your inner roar that you can express in an outer way. And just want to thank everyone for tuning in here, to listening to such beautiful wisdom, for being present and conscious and capturing the essence of your soul, what I call your Youest you. And no matter what you take from today, hopefully many things, that you really get that unconditional respect and worthiness and self-love. That is the essence. And Shunya, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. You are just such a blessing, such a gift, and so honored for your time and grace and wisdom and cosmic knowledge. Like you really exude such beauty and power and sensitivity and what we need, what's needed next.
Thank you so much, Julie.